Field Marshal said you're right.
Field Marshal?
So this, then, was Rommel. Erwin Johannes Eugen Rommel, Commander-in-Chief of the enemy army and the most celebrated German soldier since World War I. Already a legend in the desert, he was a fox who had chased his hunters back and forth across North Africa about as often as they had chased him. And his tricks and turns had made even the Tommies chuckle, which is scarcely the proper reflex to the enemy in time of war. In spite of which, he was still, of course, my enemy. The enemy not only of my country and the army in which I served, but of all life as I knew it. Not only of democracy as free men had fashioned it, but of civilization itself. My name is Desmond Young. At the time of my capture, I was a lieutenant colonel in the Indian Army. This was my first and only sight of the cool, hard, professional soldier whose scrupulous regard for the rules of warfare had been exercised, in this instance, so fortunately for myself. 2 years and 4 months later, while the British and Americans were still fighting their way across Europe, Erwin Rommel was dead. He was dead, the Nazis reported, of wounds gallantly received on the field of honor. But the Nazis were great liars, of course, and many people wondered. For already there were mysterious rumors floating across the battle lines. So, when the war was over and my military life behind me, I gave myself a mission. I set out to discover what actually had happened to him. What was the truth about his death? And on what field of honor had he died?
Have you found the Field Marshal yet?
No, sir. He's up at the front again.
I don't know how the men in the line feel about it, but so far as the staff is concerned, I'd just as soon have a commander-in-chief with a little touch of cowardice about him. Just enough to have him back here at headquarters every now and then. Keep after him, will you?
Not that it could really be described as an argument. It's impossible to have an argument with him in the sense that you and I could have an argument. He raves, he screams, he goes into such hysterics that it's like trying to make sense with a panic-stricken woman.
He called him a coward.
Did he really use that word to you?
Not once, but several times. In Russia, he said, officers like me had been put against the wall and shot.
Defenses, preparatory to taking command of the Nazi forces that were gathering to resist the assault. Then, finally, after 4 long years of preparation, it came. D-Day. And the greatest armada and the vastest movement of men and arms in the history of the world rose from England and set out for the assault on the beaches of Normandy and the German fortress of Europe.
Maxims?
They may stir schoolchildren, but they don't stop troops. But give me a free hand for a few months, and I'd make them pay for it. I'd make them pay such a price in blood they'd wish they'd never heard of Germany. I might not be able to stop them all, but they'd know they'd fought an army, not a series of stationary targets. And you'll never let us, of course. You know how firm corporals are.
World. First at McKaylee, then Tobruk, yes, and even El Alamein. In any case, his life and fate have best been summed up, ironically enough, in the words of Nazi Germany's sternest enemy, the Honorable Winston Churchill.
His ardor and daring inflicted grievous disasters upon us, but he deserves the salute to which I made him in the House of Commons in January 1942. He also deserves our respect because, although a loyal German soldier, he came to hate Hitler and all his works, and took part in the conspiracy to rescue Germany by displacing the maniac and tyrant. For this, he paid the forfeit of his life. In the somber wars of modern democracy, there is little place for chivalry.